Well, Thrive Nation, for many of you who watch this show, you know that I interview a lot of really well-known people. I mean, famous people, the people that the guy who started Netflix, or the guy who invented, Square, or the guy who started Fubu, Damon John, or Wolfgang Puck. And then I interview business owners. I interview people that own a pool company, a home building company, people that doctors, dentists, lawyers, that sort of thing. And then I love to interview people that have a strong faith, people that have convictions, somebody who's now fired up about their faith and eager to share their faith with the world. And so without any further ado, we're interviewing a gentleman today who really is passionate about sharing his love of Christ, sharing the gospel with as many people as possible. Kurt, welcome on to the ThriveTime Show. How are you, sir?
Doing very well, Clay. Thanks for having me on.
Now, Kurt, for anybody out there that doesn't know you and your background, can you share with us your first and your last name and maybe where people can find you online?
Yeah, my name is Kurt Olson, K-U-R-T. Olson is O-L-S-O-N. And our website is GoMultiply, GoMultiply.org. That's the name of our ministry organization as well.
And Kurt, how do we spell Olson for anybody out there that might want to look you up and do some research there?
Right. It's Olson is O-L-S-O-N.
Got it. And one more time, that website, because we have somebody probably driving in the car, probably trying to take notes. What was that website one more time?
It is GoMultiply.org.
So what is GoMultiply.org, or what is the premise behind it?
Sure. So it is a disciple-making ministry, and we're involved in something that today people are calling it disciple-making movements. If you're familiar with that term, if you're not familiar with that term, there's more than 2,000 disciple-making movements taking place around the world today. It's a move of God that's God is initiating in these last days. And I really wanted to come on your show today just to invite people to join God in what he's doing in these last days. When Jesus gave the Great Commission, he told 11 unschooled, ordinary people without credentials, without, degrees and pedigrees. And he just said, I want you guys to go make disciples of everybody else on planet Earth. And they began that process. And so we said, well, gee, that was basically him telling them to go and multiply. And so that's where we got the name for our organization.
So let's just say that I'm watching today's show and I'm kind of responding to what you're asking or what you're saying. And I'm thinking to myself, are we near the end? Is that what he's saying? In your mind, are we near the end? And biblically speaking, are we reaching near the end of the age?
I believe that we are near the end of the age. Yeah, I think that there's plenty of signs around that, not the least of which watching what's going on in Israel. We know that there needs to be a last temple in place before the Antichrist can, go into the temple, desecrate the temple, set up the abomination of desolation, claim to be God, demand to be worshipped. And the people, the leaders in Israel are more interested or probably closer than ever to building that third temple.
So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to kind of get out of your way, and I'm going to take some notes here because you know a lot about the Bible. You and I have talked offline a little bit about this, and I know that you want to share some messages that are core, that are important to you, that you want to share and communicate with our listeners out there that have a desire to learn more about the gospel and the Bible. So I'm going to give you the floor. What is it that you want to share with our listeners out there that are eagerly taking notes?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. More than anything, I want to, like I said, invite people to join God in what he's doing in these last days. And really, he's just getting back to the powerful simplicity of the early church. When the church began, it was a movement, and it was ordinary people. Everybody understood what it meant to be a disciple, for example. And today, most of us don't even know what Jesus meant when he used that word. And this might be a thought that some folks have never considered before, but if I don't know how Jesus defined the word disciple, then I have no hope in fulfilling the Great Commission, because I don't know the target I'm aiming at. I'm just aiming aimlessly, right? I don't know. It'd be like wearing a blindfold and being spun around in a room, and they put a target on the wall and say, okay, hit the target. And you can't, because you don't know what you're aiming at. So Jesus knew what he meant when he used that word. His followers knew what he meant. And So they knew exactly what they were supposed to be and what they were supposed to go and make. But today we think if I make passive spectator Christian church members, I'm doing good enough, maybe. And that's setting the bar very low, and Jesus set the bar very high. And what he's doing is he's taking the church back to that high bar standard of true reproducing disciples that it was in the beginning.
Now, for everybody out there that doesn't know this or maybe thinks that Kurt has lost his mind, I encourage everybody to open up your Bible to Luke chapter 9. I mean, Luke chapter 9, the Bible tells us, Luke chapter 9:5 specifically, we're supposed to go out there and lay hands on the sick, preach the gospel, going house to house, casting out demons. And someone says, what are you saying? I'm going to pull it up right now for everyone to see. I'll put it up on the screen here. Luke chapter 9 from this controversial book called the Bible. Luke chapter 9. Let me pull it up real quick here. And this is important because once you read Luke chapter 9, you go, oh, okay, that makes sense. So Luke chapter 9, and there's other parts of the Bible that talk about this, but Luke chapter 9, it says, then he, that's Jesus, called his 12 disciples together and gave them the power and authority over all devils and to cure diseases. And he sent them to preach the kingdom of God and to heal the sick. And he said unto them, take nothing for your journey, neither staves, nor scrip, neither bread, neither money, neither have 2 coats apiece. And whatsoever house ye enter into, there abide, and thence depart. And whosoever will not receive you, when ye go out of that city, shake off the very dust from your feet for a testimony against them. And then they departed and went through the towns, preaching the gospel and healing everywhere. Again, Jesus was all about action, getting involved, sharing the gospel with the lost. That seems to be your heart, is to share the gospel with the lost. Where are our Christians today? Where are we as Christians missing the mark?
Well, yeah, that's a great question, Clay. And the things that you just mentioned there, I mean, that's part of a training program. Jesus, when he began his ministry, if someone were to read Mark chapter 1, you'll see Jesus doing all those things. He's preaching the kingdom, casting out demons, cleansing the lepers, healing the sick, going out, getting alone with the Lord and praying. This is not a prayerless endeavor. And then he starts to send his disciples to do the same thing. Because one of the aspects, probably the primary aspect of being a disciple, is that you imitate the actions of your rabbi. So the rabbi is tasked with the job of empowering their disciple to do what they do. That's why Peter could walk on the water, because Jesus was walking on the water. And Peter said, well, if it's really you, then tell me to do what you're doing. Because he knew the rules. He knew, well, as a disciple, I'm supposed to imitate the rabbi. So to your question, where are we missing the mark today? According to the Billy Graham Association, 90% of American Christian church members never share the gospel with anyone. And 95% never lead a single person to Christ in their entire walk or time living as a follower of Christ, going to church, hearing good sermons, going to Bible studies, but we're missing this actual aspect of being true disciples that Jesus would, consider disciples. If he came back and looked at most of us in our churches today, he wouldn't even view us as his disciples.
Did you just say that 90% of Christians never share the gospel with anyone? And if you did say that, where are you getting that statistic from?
That comes from the Billy Graham Association.
Wow. Okay. So let's get more into it here. So you, every day, your goal is your mindset, what you're doing with your ministry is to try to teach people how to become disciples, it sounds like, teaching people how to become disciples. And the word disciple means something to me because I've read the Bible a lot and I've studied the word. But for anybody out there that doesn't know what the word disciple means, what does that mean when you're out there trying to teach people to become disciples? What does that mean to become a disciple?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we have the privilege, or I guess it's the privilege in the last few hundred years, we've discovered writings from the rabbis at the time of Jesus, largely from the Dead Sea Scrolls. There's a book out there, a friend of mine named Dr. Ed Gross wrote this book. It's called Are You a Christian or a Disciple? Dr. Ed Gross, are you a Christian or a disciple? And he went through the rabbinical writings of the time of Christ, and the rabbis at the time Jesus was walking on the earth, they viewed a disciple to be somebody who obeyed all of the commands of their rabbi, who memorized all the teaching of their rabbi, who imitated the actions of their rabbi, and gathered more disciples to their rabbi. So to be a disciple, like for example, Jesus said, "Follow me and I'll make you into a fisher of men." So my question is, if I don't fish for men, am I truly following him? Even though I might claim to follow him, I think I disqualify myself because I'm not fishing for men. Or imitating him. Clay, the things you brought up from Luke 9, those are also found in Matthew 10 and Mark 6, and then another sending in Luke 10. That's the imitating him. Those are the exact same things that he did. And then he showed his disciples how to do them, and then he empowered them to do them, and then he deployed them and sent them to do those things. So when we're doing this ministry around the world, as an example, I spent 6 weeks training 2,000 leaders in a closed country that I will not name, because if I name it, then I'm not supposed to be in there doing that. And they have planted 1,400 churches since I left, simply by creating groups of disciples. And again, because it's a closed country with severe persecution, they're not building large buildings and putting crosses top and marquees out front, because that would just get everybody to heaven sooner. So instead, we are doing smaller, we call them rabbit churches. Sometimes we call it the ant church system. It's more underground, more secretive, flying under the radar. But 1,400 churches with an average of 20 people. I think that's 28,000 people meeting in churches that weren't in a closed country. That's exciting.
Now, there's somebody watching today's show and they're going, okay, I love what you're saying, but maybe they're new to reading the Bible. They're new to studying the gospel. They're brand new to it. Where would you recommend our listeners would dive into if they want to learn? The Bible's a big book. There's 66 books in the latest edition of the Bible, right? So for anybody out there that says, hey, where should I start? What would you say?
Well, I would first tell you that it is not a book that you should read from cover to cover. Don't read it from beginning to end, even though it begins in the beginning and it ends in the end, because our faith is centered on the person of Jesus Christ and his finished work on the cross. I would start with the 4 Gospels. And I've actually done this, what I'm about to suggest, and people think I'm crazy for this, but you just go to the Gospels and have a notebook. And as you read the Gospels, look for all the things that Jesus tells his followers to do. He tells them at the very end, before he leaves, he says, now go into the world and teach everybody to obey everything I commanded you. Sometimes people don't like that word obedience. It's not legalism, because we're saved by grace through faith, but it says we're saved to do the good works that he prepared in advance for us to do. So we still have to do good works as we live out our faith. One man, a guy named Andrew Murray, wrote a book called The School of Discipleship, and he said, you get saved by grace, you stay saved by obedience. And I like that. So just take a notebook. I've done this twice in my life. Go through the Gospels, write down all the commands of Jesus, and then commit to obey them. But I have to promise you that if you commit to obey them, that he'll give you opportunities to obey them. Like, for example, if you write down, I promise I will love my enemies, then he might actually give you enemies to love. Or I promise I will turn the other cheek when I'm slapped on one cheek. Well, you might have someone slap you on the other cheek so that you can give you the opportunity to obey that command. So if you commit to obey his commands, he'll give you opportunities to obey his commands.
Now, what would you say for anybody out there that's maybe hearing your voice for the first time? Tell us about your ministry, what you have planned for the next year, Lord willing, and what you're working on.
Yeah, great. Thank you. So our ministry came into existence kind of by accident, actually. My wife and I thought we were going to plant a church, like a traditional brick and mortar church, and we prepared for that from the 90s into about 2012. And in 2012, I was praying one morning and I said, Lord, if you want me to plant a church, what's the delay? What's the holdup? Is there a conference I need to attend, a book I need to read, one more something? And the Lord met me in prayer that morning and he said, I didn't tell you to build churches. I told you to make disciples. And I said, I'll build my church. Let's keep that clear. As if I was trying to do his job, expecting him to do my job. I thought if I build church, he'll make disciples. But in reality, I make disciples and he builds church. So what we've done so far, we've literally seen somewhere between 20 and 50,000 churches planted around the world by coming in and simply training people in the powerful simplicity of the early church, in Jesus' training program to disciple the nations. In fact, I wrote a book about it. Can I plug my book?
Absolutely. Shamelessly plug your book.
Shamelessly plug my book. So the book is called The End Game of God, and it is the new Wineskin training program of Jesus to disciple the nations. It's literally just how Jesus trained ordinary, unschooled people so they knew how to be disciples who make disciples. I was in Tanzania doing an open air training just a year and a half ago, and some women of another faith were listening through the doors of their houses. And on the second day of the training, we offered baptism to anyone who'd never been baptized. And 5 ladies from another faith came out of their homes and said, we gave our lives to Jesus yesterday in our houses. Can we get baptized too? So we baptized them on day 2. On day 3, they sat in on our training. And on day 4, they went out. You mentioned house to house. They went out into the homes of their enclave where they live, where people are not of the faith that follows Jesus Christ. And they started planting these simple churches in the homes of these people. So what do we have planned coming up? It is honestly more than I can handle personally, but we're training some Spanish-speaking trainers to start with Mexico and go south from Mexico to train and launch movements of disciples from Mexico all the way down to the southern tip of Chile. We've got 10,000 now, 10,000 people to train in the country of India, which is the most unreached nation on earth. Most people don't know that there are still about 2 billion people on earth who've never heard Jesus' name. And it's just logical that the easiest people to reach have already been reached, and the hardest people to reach are the ones who still haven't been reached. We're also invited to train entire denominations, leaders in the country of Nepal. I need to go to Nigeria, train Anglican pastors and priests and bishops there. It's just kind of out of control. Ethiopia, go all the way around the edges of Ethiopia, train Somalis on the Somali border, Eritreans on the Eritrean border, Djiboutians on the Djiboutian border, Sudanians on the Sudan borders, and then send them back into their country so they can disciple their nation, because that's what Jesus trained his guys to do. He didn't tell them just go disciple your neighbor or go disciple your co-workers. That's fine and well and good, but he trained them and equipped them and empowered them and sent them to disciple nations.
Kurt, with the final 30 seconds we have here, I'm going to give you the final word. What do you want to say to all of our listeners out there that are watching and eagerly taking notes?
I would say do your own research. Go online and research disciple-making movements, and then research Discovery Bible Study. The Discovery Bible Study is a Bible study where God the Father does the teaching, so you don't need trained professionals to run that Bible study. And these are the seeds of the church. When we start these Bible studies, they tend to grow, and then they tend to multiply as churches. We're also starting a website called, it's actually inspired by Clay Clark. He doesn't know this maybe, called timetodiscipleamerica.com. And we're just in the process of building that website because people want to see disciple-making movements taking place in America, not just overseas.
Kurt, thank you so much for carving out time for us today. I know you're a busy person. I really do appreciate you. And I encourage everyone to check out your website to learn more. And I hope you have a great rest of your day, sir.
Thank you for your time, Clay. God bless.